Good afternoon. Welcome and thank you for being here today. Joining me today, to my left, your right, is our incoming police chief, Mr. Rick Scott. We have acting chief Brian Amoroso and our sheriff Ian Parkinson. And I'd also like to thank our American Sign Language interpreter, Robin Babb, for providing translation services today. I have the privilege of serving as the city manager for this amazing community. Your city council and I every single day work alongside 500 dedicated public servants who come to work to make this community better. They have served us tirelessly during the last year and supported our community every day, and we continue to be in awe of their services. Yesterday, I had to share the most difficult news I've ever had to deliver, that our community lost one of the dedicated servants while doing his job and keeping our community safe. Further, another officer was injured. Speaking directly today to Detective Benedetti, please know how grateful the City Council and I are, and every single member of the community are, for the service to keep our community safe. We are heartbroken alongside you. Know that the entire city family will walk the path of grief with you and will always remember Luca's sacrifice. To the community, I ask you to join me in offering your support to members of our police department during this difficult time. As an organization and as a community, we are here for them, just as they are here for us every day, 24/7. I'd now like to ask our incoming police chief, Rick Scott, to say a few words. His first day with the police department is this Thursday, but he was able to meet with members of our department yesterday and help them at the start of what will be an incredibly difficult journey. This is not how a chief wants to begin his tenure in service, but I can say with absolute certainty that we are fortunate to have him at the helm at this time. And I'll now turn it to Chief Scott.
Thank you, City Manager Johnson, for your confidence and kind words. Good afternoon, everyone. Thank you for coming out and to hear our statement. I first want to start by speaking directly to our police officers and our men and women. Let me be the first among you to formally offer my sincerest condolences. We have some fantastic men and women at the San Luis Police Department, and this is an unthinkable tragedy. Each of you come to work knowing any day something like this could happen. Even still, these incredible men and women brave these odds in service to our community and to each and every one of you. Yesterday was an absolute tragedy. An officer died serving our community. What I saw my first day on the job was how dedicated each of our officers are and our police family to one another, and they held each other up. Last night, our police family wrapped our arms around one another as the words of the officers who were injured in the firefight. I saw expressions of love and support for one another in the amazing strength displayed through this grief. My thoughts and prayers go out to the families of Detectives Benedetti and Roscoe. And I'd also like to extend my sympathy to the entire community of San Luis Obispo. As I went through the process of applying to be your next police chief, I came to learn a lot about your town. And what I learned very quickly is that while you are strong in a vibrant community, you collectively care deeply about one another. This tragic loss will be deeply felt, and it will take time to gain understanding and to begin to heal. It will take even longer to consider how something so tragic could happen here and to the good men and women of your police department. There may be no good answer to these questions. In the coming days and weeks and months, they're going to be among the hardest that we have faced as a department. We will need to help one another through the shock and sadness and the immeasurable grief that we are going through at this time. We are grateful for our regional partners who have helped during this investigation and will continue to work diligently to provide those answers to our community and to our department. I want to also thank the incredible leadership of Acting Chief Amoroso, and I'd also like to introduce him to come up now and provide more information about the incident that took place yesterday afternoon. Thank you.
Thank you, Chief Scott. Good afternoon. At approximately 5 p.m. yesterday, 6 San Luis Obispo Police Department officers were serving a search warrant in the 3000 block of Camellia Court. The warrant was for possible stolen property related to a series of late-night commercial burglaries that had occurred over the past week. As the officers approached the apartment, they provided knock and notice identifying themselves as law enforcement as required by California Penal Code, Section 844. After an extended period of time and having received no response, they forced the door open, at which point suspect Edward Zamora Giron was lying in wait and began to fire shots from inside the apartment. Officers returned fire and retreated. However, 2 officers were shot in that exchange of gunfire. Detective Luca Benedetti, 37 years old, tragically died at the scene as a result of the wounds he suffered. Detective Stephen Orozco was wounded and was transported to Sierra Vista Hospital, where he was treated and released late last night. Detective Orozco is expected to fully recover from his injuries. The suspected shooter, Edward Zamora Giron, was later found deceased inside the apartment with an apparent self-inflicted fatal gunshot wound, as well as other injuries consistent with being struck by the officer's return fire. The San Luis Obispo County Sheriff's Office, in coordination with the District Attorney's Office, will be conducting the investigation into the incident. We appreciate their assistance through this difficult time, and having an outside agency conduct an investigation is standard practice for officer-involved shootings. We will cooperate fully with their investigation. No additional details will be released at this time until the investigation is complete, and any questions regarding the investigation should be referred to the San Luis Obispo County Sheriff's Office. Detective Benedetti was hired by SLO PD in 2012. Prior to that, he worked for 4 years as a police officer with the city of Atascadero. He is survived by his wife and his 2 young children. I had the distinct pleasure of working with Luca over the past 9 years. I considered him a personal friend. He was a dedicated officer, a talented detective, a proud member of the San Luis Obispo Regional SWAT team, and most importantly, a loving husband and father. The entire San Luis Obispo Police Department is grateful for the outpouring of support we've received from the community, and we're also grateful for the continued support we've received from our Central Coast law enforcement partners and beyond. The San Luis Obispo Sheriff's Office, along with allied law enforcement agencies in the county, We'll be responding to calls for service in the city during the coming days so that members of the San Luis Obispo Police Department can grieve and work through this tragedy. I'd now like to hand it back to City Manager Derek Johnson. Thank you.
Thank you, Chief. Before we open up for questions, I do want to take a moment to thank our various partners who have provided us excellent support and assistance over the last 24 hours. They include the San Luis Obispo County Sheriff's Department, the California Highway Patrol, and various officers from law enforcement agencies throughout the county. I'd also like to acknowledge our mayor and council member Christensen for coming today. Other council members weren't able to join us as they had planned time away from the city or weren't able to join us. And specifically want to acknowledge our police chief from Pismo Beach, Chief Smith, and Commander Klingenberg. I'd also like to add that our mayor has ordered all flags to be flown at half-staff throughout the city in remembrance of Detective Benedetti. And we ask that the community members and organizations join us in the sign of respect. We'll be releasing more information later for those interested in providing support and express their condolences. And in the meantime, we ask that you please respect the privacy of the families. And at this point, we would open up to questions.
Sorry, hi, this is Nick Wilson with the Tribune. Just wondering if you could start off by talking a little bit about Detective Benedetti's background, his role at the city, any memories you have of him.
I'm going to ask Chief Amoroso to answer that.
Thanks, Nick. At this time, the only information we're releasing about Detective Benedetti is what was released in the presser, out of respect for the family. Again, he started in 2012 and 4 years prior in Atascadero.
Hello, Dave Alley with News Channel 12, News Channel 3. Can you provide any information about the suspect, a little more about who he was, and if there was any idea that he may be armed and dangerous upon that search warrant?
Ian Parkinson, Sheriff. The suspect was a resident in the city. He did have a criminal history, however, not of violence, of mainly alcohol, drug, and property offenses, and he had no registered firearms to him.
When was the last officer-involved shooting in the city of San Luis Obispo?
We don't have that information available to us immediately at this time. We can certainly provide that information at a later time.
We've obviously had some knowledge of mental illness. Can you speak to that? I mean, on the suspect's part, what was going on in terms of any kind of mental illness background? Did the pandemic or isolation play a role in this at all?
Thanks, Nick, for the question. I think the sheriff just provided you the totality of information of what we knew about the suspect.
I'll just add, Nick, that there was no indication of anything in our files of mental illness, and we did in fact execute the warrant that was signed by the Superior Court that San Luis was there to serve, and we did find property there that was taken, reported to the police department as taken in the commercial burglaries that they were investigating.
Sheriff Parkinson, we don't know when the last officer-involved shooting was here in San Luis Obispo. When was the last officer, perhaps you would know this, in San Luis Obispo County killed in the line of duty?
I've been here 36 years. Most of it, or two-thirds of it, was here in the city of San Luis. I don't recall the last officer-involved shooting in San Luis. In the county, of course, last year we had 3, where we had 2 deputies that were shot in 2 separate shootings. But I do not have any memory in the last 3, almost 4 decades of an officer being shot in the line of duty.
How about killed, maybe in another way by a suspect?
Again, other than some health-related issues, employees, I don't have any memory of that in the last near 4 decades.
Do you know what commercial burglaries this is relating to, or where maybe the pad climbing gym was burglarized on Sunday morning? Is this related to that?
So I think I understand the question. I think here again, the totality of what we're releasing in terms of the active investigation is included in the press release and the information that's been provided today, and more information will be provided to both the community and the media as it becomes available.
And we'll take one more question, and after that, we have information about how to contact the city on get further information. Feel free to contact that member of the city, and we'll wrap it up right now.
In regards to the search warrant and how this, obviously it's a very dangerous job being a police officer, but is there anything that changes about how to conduct the search warrant? Was there any forewarning of this, or is it a complete surprise? How would you respond to that?
Those are, I think they'll be asked as part of the investigation. I think we're prepared to answer those questions today. Certainly that information will become available and released as appropriate. Today, I think it's important to remember that we're here to focus on the officers who served our community valiantly, that gave their life and that are injured, and that's what our focus is today. All right, with that, we'll go ahead and conclude the press conference. Thank you all for coming today. We appreciate all of your time and interest in this, and be safe, be well.